Welcome to Magnificat TV news program dedicated to providing news from the church. Today is Wednesday, May 15th, 2024, and these are our headlines. The Pope has published a bull officially announcing the Holy Year, which commemorates the 2025th anniversary of the birth of Christ. The German bishops have decided to approve the statutes of the Synodal Council in defiance of the Pope's express prohibition. 4 have not given their approval. Attacks against Christians in Africa are continuous, and now it is in an area of Sahel, 3 borders, where they are suffering intensely. Regnum Christi has concluded its General Assembly, renewing its governing bodies and facing the challenge of evangelizing by healing the wounds of the past. The Pope has published a bull announcing the celebration of the Jubilee year 2025 with a clear invitation to maintain hope in this time of crisis.
The Holy See has made public the Papal Bull, Spes Not Confudit, announcing the ordinary Jubilee of the year 2025. The Pontiff announces that he will open a holy door in prisons, calls for the cancellation of the debt of poor countries, an increase in the birth rate, the welcoming of migrants and respect for creation. The papal document, Spes Not Confudit, which in Latin means, hope does not disappoint, taken from Romans 5 verse 5, calls for a new ordinary jubilee to be celebrated in 2025, following the ecclesiastical tradition of convoking a holy year every 25 years. The bull is deeply rooted in the theology of hope. With this bull, Pope Francis is not only calling the Church to celebrate a year of profound religious and spiritual activities, but also invites renewed reflection and action in response to the world's persistent problems, positioning hope as a transforming force that can renew both hearts and global social structures. In the age of the internet, where space and time are supplanted by the here and now, patience seems strange. If we were still able to contemplate creation with wonder, we would understand how essential patience is. To wait for the seasons to alternate with their fruits, to observe the life of animals and the cycle of their development, to have the simple eyes of St. Francis, says the bull. May the first sign of hope be translated into peace for the world, which is one again immersed in the tragedy of war. Humanity, forgetful of the dramas of the past, is subjected to a new and difficult test when it sees many populations oppressed by the brutality of violence, the text adds. Looking to the future with hope also means having a vision of life, full of enthusiasm to share with others. However, we must note with sadness that in many situations this perspective is lacking. The first consequence of this is the loss of desire to pass on life, which is why we are witnessing a worrying drop in the birth rate in several countries. I urgently implore hope for the thousands of poor people who often lack the necessities of life. Faced with a succession of every new waves of poverty, they risk of becoming accustomed and resigned. But we cannot turn our gaze away from such dramatic situations, the Pope also said. There is another pressing invitation that I wish to address in the view of the Jubilee year. It is addressed to the richest nations, so that they may recognize the gravity of so many decisions taken and decide to cancel the debts of those countries that will never be able to pay them off, he finally asked.
The German bishops, except for 4, have decided to terminate their talks with the Vatican and have approved the statutes of the Synodal Council.
Only a few months ago in February, the Vatican has been very clear with the bishops of the Church of Germany, forbidding them to approve the statutes of the Synodal Council, which gave voting rights to the laity just as the bishops. At that point, the Germans complied and withdrew the draft statutes from the agenda. A meeting at the highest level was convened in the Vatican in March, at which no agreement was reached other than to continue with dialogue, and a next round of consultations was planned for before the summer. Contrary to their own word, the German Church has announced that they have already drafted the statuses whose elaboration had been forbidden, and they will be presented this week. This means that during this month, they have continued working on these statuses, using the dialogue with the Vatican as an excuse to gain time. 4 German bishops presided over by the Cardinal of Cologne have refused to support these statuses, claiming that it would be an act of disobedience and that their content goes against the sacramental constitution of the Church. In addition to the Cardinal, there are the bishops of Risenberg, Passau, and Nisichat. According to the statuses, the Synodal Council would be composed of bishops and the lay people, all with the right to speak and vote, and would have the power to decide on issues such as the role of women priests, sexual morality, priestly celibacy, LGBTQ marriages, and access to communion for irregular couples.
Persecution against Christians in Africa is increasing day by day. When it is not in one country, it is another. Now, it is the turn of the so-called three-border area.
In the three borders area, comprising Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, conflicts are aggravated by the presence of bandits or jihadist-oriented armed terrorist groups who demand that Christian communities pay a tax or convert to Islam. Otherwise, they must leave or they will be executed. It happens 100 kilometers from the capital Niamey. They arrive with motorcycles, armed, and propose to villagers to choose either to pay a tax of 50,000 sefa, €76, per male from the age of 15 or to convert to Islam. If both are refused, the only thing left to do is to leave the village and everything you own in their hands. They are Islamic terrorists operating mainly in the three borders area. These are Mali, Burkina Faso, and of course Niger. These three countries are currently ruled by military regimes and have chosen to unite in a new entity called the Alliance of Sahel States. Since the kidnapping of Father Piolugi Makali in 2018, the life of peasants living in the border area with Burkina Faso has continued to deteriorate. Threats, kidnappings, targeted killings, bleakly closed schools, intimidation, and a climate of fear characterize the daily life of the residents. The terrorists have given a week to give them an answer. Refusing the conversion leaves only the option of exodus because paying the sum demanded this year means seeing it double next year. The authorities are aware of the drama unfolding not far from the capital, but they have done nothing to prevent it.
Regnum Christi, which includes the Legionaries of Christ, has concluded its General Assembly and renewed its leadership.
The first General Convention of Regnum Christi, held in Rome, culminated in the election of the new leaders, who include lay people in the executive positions, and the confirmation of 3 pastoral priorities for the next 6 years. The assembly was attended by 120 people from the 4 vocations: legionaries, consecrated lay, and lay people. The highest governing body of the Regnum Christi Federation, which includes the Legionaries of Christ, confirmed 3 priorities for the next 6 years: the promotion of the pastoral care of marriage and the family, the formation of communities of apostles on the move, and the promotion of a vocational culture that favors the understanding of life as a vocation and facilitates its discovery and acceptance. The work proposer invites us to reject 3 temptations: that of locking ourselves in bunker, that of allowing ourselves to be dominated by nostalgia for a past that will not return, and that of accepting the dominant principles, criteria, and methods of the world. To address this challenge, the First General Convention affirms that small changes in our traditional pastoral care will not be enough. Among other things, consider that they must move from dependence on consecrated vocations to a charism received and driven by all, including the laity.
Our editorial this week is dedicated to comment on the defiance to the Pope made by the German bishops by approving the statutes of the Synodal Council.
The German bishops have decided to break off the dialogue. The thing goes way back from the beginning of the German synodal path. That synodal path was already a premonition of what has now happened. It's about to happen. Within the synodal path, not only were changes requested in the sexual morality of the Church, in the acceptance of Protestants to communion, or in the communion of irregular couples, either divorced and remarried or simply cohabiting, but it was also requested that, at the time of making decisions, the laity be included within the theme in each assembly of the Episcopal Conference. In each diocese or in each parish, they should be included not only with a voice, which already exists, but also with a vote. And that each one of these persons should have a vote, should have the same value, the bishop and same, as of the laity, with which evidently the Church lost its judicial characteristics and the bishop was one more vote within a group, and always a very small minority. This developed along the synodal path, and it must be said that the Vatican and the Pope took it seriously as far as warnings were concerned. It must be remembered that the letter of Pope Francis, when the synodal path was still developing, in which he said that it was very necessary to give much more importance to evangelization than to the change of structures they were asking for. There had not been such a letter since the one written by the Pope at that time of the German Catholics during the Nazi period. Development of the synodal path has gone ahead in spite of the serious warnings of the Pope and also of Pope's men, the example of Cardinal Parolin. This being so, last February, the German bishops, the Synodal Council, or better said, the Synodal Committee, had to already establish some concrete statutes for that Synodal Council, where the possibility of the layperson who is in that council having a vote with the same value as the vote that the bishop has was reflected. At that time, we were talking about the month of February. The Vatican already decided to warn very seriously. There is a letter from the Cardinal Parolin, an important letter, in which it is said that this cannot take place, and that if it is done, the consequences will be very serious, that they are not authorized to do so. In that letter it says, the Church in Germany is not authorized to establish a decision-making body in which the laity, in addition to the bishops, also have a vote in fundamental ecclesiastical matters. Is not authorized. In that letter, it is also explicitly said that it is being written on behalf of the Pope. The situation of the month of February was so dangerous, so serious that a person, I would say moderately liberal, as is Cardinal Schönborn, Archbishop of Vienna, had some more stronger words, even than those of Cardinal Parolin. Schönborn says, the German bishops must ask themselves seriously whether they really want to live communion with and under the Pope, or rather accept it loyally. And Schönborn adds, to refuse would be obstinacy, a clear sign of a schism that no one can wish for. Month of February, Schönborn speaks explicitly of schism. To refuse would be obstinacy, a clear sign of schism. Month of February. It must be said that immediately the German bishops decided to withdraw from the meeting they had of the Synodal Council, they decided to withdraw from the agenda the statutes of that Synodal Committee. Then in a meeting took place in March in the Vatican, where a delegation of these bishops, German bishops, and some lay people were present, and where the highest officials of the Holy See were present, the Secretary of the State, the Prefect of the Doctrine of the Faith, and the Prefect of Bishops, among others. The official note said that it had been a friendly meeting, a constructive dialogue, very good, and that the parties, German and the Vatican, were summoned to continue dialoguing to have another meeting before the summer. As things stood, well, it seemed that they have reached a kind of agreement to delay it as not to go to confrontation and to continue talking good. Well, this week it became known that the German bishops do not even respect their own commitments. This week they have announced that the statuses of this synodal committee are already elaborated and they will be presented the first days of next week, curiously coinciding with the presentation of a document elaborated by the doctrine of the faith on the criteria of discernment for the apparitions, true or alleged, of the Lord or of the Blessed Virgin. One does not have to be very intelligent to realize that when the German bishops are doing, it's clearly not coming from God. One would think that in these statutes they have already been elaborated. They are going to be presented next week. They are already elaborated, and therefore they will have been elaborated behind the Vatican's back and against the Vatican. One would think that certain things have been modified, and therefore they have accepted what Vatican asks, that a layman does not have the same capacity to vote as a bishop. One could think that we do not know the statutes, but there is someone who does more than us. The German bishops themselves do not even know them, but they know them. 4 German bishops, only 4 of the entire German Episcopal Conference presided by the Cardinal Archbishop of Cologne, have said that they are not going to sign those statutes because that goes directly against what the Vatican has forbidden, which is a total challenge to the Vatican, they have affirmed. The decision of the synodal path is not compatible with the sacramental constitution of the Church. It is not that we are imagining, supposing, or assuming the worst, but rather, if 4 bishops who undoubtedly know the already elaborated statutes that are going to be presented in a few days, if 4 bishops say that will not be the sign, it is because surely there is something that goes against what the Vatican has clearly told them that they cannot do. When the synodal part began, Cardinal Müller, a German, said that the Vatican, the Pope, had to act as soon as possible to avoid greater evils. And he gave as an example how late Rome acted when the schism of Luther began. Well, Luther would not have happened, or it would have come to nothing, or its consequences would have been minor. And he asked to act as soon as possible against the drift that was already seen coming from the German Synod. They did not pay attention to him. The German bishops, except for these 4 Catholic bishops who are still there, these 4 who are willing to obey the Pope, the German bishops have abused the Holy Father. They have abused his good faith. They have abused the Pope's mission of procuring the unity of the Church. They have abused to the point, I repeat, that they have promised something that they themselves have not fulfilled. Come on, we will not approve this. We will continue to dialogue, but meanwhile, they have elaborated them and now they are presenting them. The situation is critical, but the Pope, the Vatican has to do something. It is an abuse to the Pope. It is an abuse to the Catholic Church. It is an abuse to our Lord Jesus Christ, to what is contained in the Word of God, because it is evident, everybody understands it this way. Without any exception, everyone, that at the moment it is done, this committee or the Synodal Council is constituted with these prerogatives. It has already been said, and moreover, it has been said this week by several German bishops, that certain norms would begin to be voted and approved. For example, changes in the sexual morality of the Church. It has been a German bishop this week who has said that the catechism has to change, not only for them, but the whole world has to change because they decide it. Whoever said this, everything they have been thinking for since the beginning, priestesses, acceptance of communion to anyone who wants it, we are facing a defiance, a challenge that have just publicly defied the Pope by breaking their own word. We are going to continue dialoguing, they have said. But we they say that they have been making the statues and no dialogue. No next meeting before the summer. No nothing we present in next week. I insist, I did not know the statutes. But if 4 bishops say that they cannot sign this because it goes against what the Pope has forbidden, then it means that we have gone ahead with what they wanted to do. There is no choice but to act. There is still a firm Catholic remnant in Germany, and I also am not referring to these 4 bishops, but to others who perhaps do not dare to go against public opinion. We must remember that pathetic dictatorial scheme, when within the framework of the German Synod, a vote had to be taken and was rejected by the majority of the bishops, and then it was decided that the vote had to be repeated on the next topic. But now by a show of hands, so that there would be a record of who was opposed. And there only these bishops, I think, there will be 6 at that time, were the ones who opposed it by a show of hands. This is history. This is not an invention. This is there. This is the data of the fact. They have abused. They have broken their own promises. If they are allowed to do that, the faithful rest will fear abandon. Not only these 4 bishops, but the faithful Catholics who are a majority and minority within the practicing Catholics in Germany. It must be recognized. But who are there struggling and suffering? They will feel abandoned. They cannot be left alone. And then there will be a contagion if the bishops are allowed to do that. How long will it take the Belgians or the Swiss? To give examples, they are practically certain. What about Canada or some dioceses in the United States? We are in a critical moment, in a historical moment, in a very difficult moment. A schism is a tragedy, a tragedy. Cardinal Schönborn said it with all its letters. If you do not obey, we are facing a schism. That is a tragedy. We have to look at history, the tragedy of the schism of Luther. We must try to avoid it with prayer, but we must also support the Pope and ask the Holy Spirit to give him enough light to act with love, with charity, with dialogue, but also with decision in such a difficult moment as this. Until next week, God willing.
We will continue to keep you informed of what is happening in the church. In the meantime, you can check our website at www.magnificat.tv. Until next week, God willing.